So this is the first notes that you'll use to do 1 through 11 on the study guide, which will be due Thursday night before midnight. So pretty much just 11 questions from this, but we're going to treat this like we would normally in class. So this whole unit is really about linkage institutions. So I tried to find some kind of visual here of, how the people, are connected to the government as in Uncle Sam here. So really what we're going to be covering here is media in this one, and the rest of the unit will be on parties and then interest groups. We're going to save elections and campaigns for the last unit that we'll get to later on in, a few weeks. So that's my plan here. You'll keep seeing this picture pop up, and here's your definition of linkage institutions up here. But through these things, this is how the people tell the government what they want, one way or the other. And so really we're going to focus on media and how the people interact with that and how the government interacts with it here today. Of course, media is, pretty much front and center here with the whole coronavirus thing. I've seen both praise and criticism of it, of course. But here's a good movie clip to kind of show us where we're jumping off here with American media and our style, because it is unique to us.
Let's see here. Global temperatures rise half a degree. Alarm climate scientists. Boring. What if we show a porno instead of the news? Freddy?
No, absolutely not.
Freddy, come on. We're just brainstorming here. We're trying to figure out how to make the news less boring, and you act like we peed in your milkshake.
The news is supposed to be boring, Ron. Serious stuff.
I just don't know why we have to tell the people what they need to hear. Why can't we just tell them what they want to hear?
Wait. Say that again?
I said, why do we have to tell the people what they need to hear? Why can't we just tell them what they want to hear?
And what do they want to hear, Ron?
That we live in the greatest country God ever created. Damn straight!
Yeah, so that's actually pretty accurate. And what Anchorman 2 is making fun of a lot in that movie is when the news, especially CNN, when it started to be a 24-hour news network, when that shift started to happen. And of course, it's set back in the, I don't know, late 70s, early 80s, or whenever it was. So what the media in the US has become really good at is the two things they kind of mentioned in there. One is telling people what they want to hear. The news drives the conversation, but they're also catering to what people find interesting or is going to catch their ear or their eye or both. Okay? It's very well thought about, is the point that I'm getting at here. And so when they decide what people want to hear, they try to make it in a way of how they think they need to hear it at the same time. So through that, they're also influencing kind of how the public's going to react. So they are both telling people what they want, but also trying to get them to act in a way that the media thinks they should be reacting to whatever they're telling them is happening. Hopefully that made a little bit of sense. But it's kind of both a give and take thing with the public, is what I'm saying. Bottom line is, we're going to keep finding out too, is that they need people to tune in. They need people to read their stuff, or they need people to watch their channels all the time. And so the ways that they get creative to get people to do that, here are some tactics. Okay, but again, this is kind of when the shift in the movie happens.
What's that?
Huh? Oh, that's nothing. That's just a car chase of the satellite feed from Milwaukee.
You know what? Give it to me live to start the broadcast.
No, that's not news, Ron.
Give it to me live, okay? And don't question me again.
Bill!
Now, to you, the modern viewer, reporting on a car chase may seem commonplace. But in 1980, it was unheard of.
Good evening. I'm Ron Burgundy, reporting live from New York. We have breaking news developing in our nation's heartland. A high-speed car chase is in progress, reaching
the breaking
speeds
news logo
of
up.
100
Keep up the grind.
miles per hour. And for the first time in news history, we will stay with it live until it resolves in either a huge accident or
Richard!
a massive shootout.
Hurry, get in here! There's a car chase on the news!
This is the pulse of what's going on in our country right now.
Freddie, what's going on?
Why is our local car chase on TV?
It's Burgundy. He insisted.
Can't you see what the son of a bitch is doing? He didn't have a story, so he made one.
You can't do that.
Tell Ron to speculate who's driving the car.
Ron, speculate on who's driving the car.
We believe the driver may be on drugs. He's probably 6'7", 6'8", but a skinny 6'7", 6'8", about 160. He may have a hostage or two. We don't know. He could have something.
The phone lines are lighting up. It's about the chase. I've never seen anything like it.
This is extremely gripping. Oh, he just hit a car. He just hit a car. He hit a car. Did you see that? He hit a car. Wow.
He hit the car.
He hit the car.
When did the news get awesome?
And he just loses it. Wow, that's exactly what we needed. It was getting a little boring. We're just getting word that police have finally apprehended the suspect. It turns out that he's an elderly gentleman. He's 80 years old, and he was simply confused. I'm Ron Burgundy. Don't just have a great night. Have an American night.
And we are clear.
Yes! Right! All right!
I don't believe it. You did it, Ron.
So just in that little clip, there are several tactics the media does all the time. Okay, one is, hey, put the most compelling or exciting story front and center. Right, a car chase. Hey, that's something people want to watch. You don't lead with the boring stuff. You lead with the exciting stuff, and you save the boring stuff for later. Okay, just like a newspaper, the big headlines are on page 1. Right, if you don't care as much about a story, you're gonna bury it on page 5, 6, 7, 8, whatever it is. So that's one. Also, I think they said in there, right, we didn't have a story, so we just made one up. Well, yeah, when you start having 24-hour news channels that have 24 hours to fill per day, you have to make stuff up from time to time or make things into a bigger deal than they probably ordinarily would be. You have to fill your time. Okay, the speculation about what is, right, he's probably 6'6", 6'7". There might be something in his trunk. There might be a body in there, or whatever he just says, just throwing out random stuff. He has no idea, but hey, speculation keeps people's attention. Okay, and then the scare tactics. If you didn't read the ticker going across on the bottom, rewind a little bit and read it. It's kind of well worth your time. And then the very last thing he says, right, have an American night. Let's just throw in some random patriotism there to make sure that all the audience knows, hey, America's great regardless of what we're putting on TV right now. Okay, so these are just some tactics the media uses, but again, they're all pretty much designed to get viewers and keep your attention. Okay, now I'm talking like this is a bad thing. I'm not necessarily saying that, because think about it from their standpoint. It's a competitive market, and you have to get people to tune in or read your newspaper. If they don't watch it, you don't get money. You don't get advertising stuff. If you don't read it, people don't buy the newspaper or the magazine or whatever, then you go bankrupt. So, you know, it is what it is. You can't really blame news stations for catering to the audience because they need viewers and readers. Without that, without an audience, they don't do any good. Okay. Now, the internet's obviously changed things a ton in the last 20 years, but where this is going, still bottom line, you still need viewers. Now, maybe that's on YouTube and not on TV as much anymore, depending on who you're talking about and what age group, but you need viewers and readers, okay? The other thing is, people are going to gravitate towards their own opinions. If you are reinforcing or telling somebody something that they already believe, if you're validating their viewpoint, they're going to keep watching. So it's going to basically pay, and it makes sense to be what AP is going to say is ideologically driven. If you're a Republican, you watch Fox News because they tell you the things that you already believe and make you feel like you're smart for believing that. If you're a Democrat or a liberal, you're going to do the same thing and watch the other side, though, MSNBC, okay? And you're going to gravitate towards that because they're telling you what you want to hear. Okay? That's just how it works. Okay? So it pays to be ideologically driven. It does not pay to stay in the middle and be neutral all the time unless that is your whole point. But really, the ones that try to stay neutral are usually the ones that have a hard time making the money. So these factors make the media, it kind of makes people have a love-hate relationship with it. And that's kind of the theme of the rest of these notes here. All right. So it pays to be ideological, and it makes sense that they're going to cater to what people want to hear, whether it's because of what they believe or just because of whether it's exciting. You need people to tune in. All right. So I'm going to skip this video for now just because for the sake of time. Okay, but basically this goes back to I think 2008. You have both Fox News. Michelle Obama gave a big speech at the 2008 Democratic Convention, and Fox News is like, it wasn't very good. It wasn't patriotic enough. It was bad. It's blah blah blah. It wasn't very special. It wasn't very good. And then the video cuts to MSNBC, which is like drooling over it, saying, oh, it was great. It was fantastic. It was both patriotic and grounded. It was, both content and, tone and blah, blah, blah. And so, again, when something political happens, here's the news to frame it, okay, and add commentary to it. And so this right here, the majority of at least cable news for sure, Fox, MSNBC, and CNN is going to be mostly commentary. There is a much smaller amount of actual news reporting on these news stations versus telling you what you should think about what they reported. So if you're going to take like a 16-hour day, it might be like 4 hours of news reporting, and then the other 12 is, the more entertaining, the more, hey, here's why this happened is bad, or here's why this happened is great, or blah, 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 blah. Okay. This kind of commentary gets more viewers. That's why they put it on there. Okay, it's pretty much that simple. They want to drive people to act. They do have an agenda, but it also gets people to tune in. Okay, so where do people get their news? In 2020, and what kind of trends have there been? I mentioned the internet a little bit a couple minutes ago. So looking at this, right? Here's what U.S. adults get their news, but again, here it is broken down by age group. You can probably guess that as the internet becomes a bigger and bigger deal, more people are using the internet to find news sources. And that could be websites, that could be YouTube, that could be social media. It's all different platforms, but it still is online. It's coming to them. Fewer and fewer people are actually grabbing a newspaper and reading it. Okay. So if you kind of look at this, here's a few trends that stick out. Okay. If we want to use the term mass media, it includes all these things now that I just highlighted in this box. Okay, and I would also throw in the internet as well. I know it's kind of a dated thing, but not that far, but I would throw internet in as mass media depending on how they use it. Okay, so trends. One, print sources have declined a lot with the internet, for sure. Okay, people just read things on their phone or on a tablet. They don't actually get a hard piece of paper or magazine coming to their door anymore. And so also, newspapers and things have made all their stories available online. Sometimes they still ask for a paid subscription, but they've tried to cater to this trend also. Older Americans still watch TV much, much more than anybody else as far as where they get their news from. So Fox News is on a lot amongst the older generation. So is MSNBC, but Fox is by far the number one. Okay, but they will go to TV, and this also includes the 10 o'clock news. It doesn't necessarily have to be the 24-hour CNN and MSNBC Fox News, but it's, Cake and KWCH and KSN, the local 10 o'clock news as well. They will turn that on just because they have their whole life. Yeah, it's reliable. And you can see here online amongst the younger generations is higher than amongst the old generations. Makes sense if these two boxes go to each other. But since the younger generation, we're already so ingrained in our head to get it online, okay, that's probably going to be the dominant trend in the future for sure. Okay. Looking at this chart real quick, broken down by topic, looks like topic does matter for where, looking at these columns up here, where do you go for the specific topic? Okay, so if I kind of ask the question down here, does topic matter? The answer is definitely yeah. Okay. Big picture issues of the entire that deal with the globe or the whole country, you're probably going to go to your MSNBC, Fox, or CNN. Okay, local stuff like crime and safety, weather, it's going to be more your local, your KAKE, your KWCH, Channel 10, Channel 12, those. Okay, and then from there it gets much more special and whatever, you know, small town newspapers and so on and so forth. So depending on what you're looking for, you know, different types of media have kind of cornered certain topics, and so topic does matter as well. AP really wants you to know this particular term called horse race journalism, and you're going to see this a lot this year in a presidential year that 2020 is. So this term basically, okay, so what you're going to see happen probably, especially between Donald Trump and Joe Biden, who's looking like it's going to be the nominee here. Okay, what they're going to do is focus on the differences between those two instead of maybe their similarities. Okay, they're going to contrast those two throughout the whole year, okay, as we're leading up to the election. Okay, so they're focusing on personality type stuff. They're focusing on the way that they carry themselves, how they speak, you know, who's voting for them, that kind of stuff. Okay, and they're also going to do a ton of polling data. Now, before we got, you know, shut down before spring break, we finished our unit on polls and what makes an accurate poll. But man, we're going to rely a lot on those here in the next year to tell us what Americans think and what how things are trending and so on and so forth. But they're going to focus a lot on those. Okay, and it's going to be more scorekeeping. Who's ahead? How did Trump stick it to Biden? Or how did Biden stick it to Trump? Or how are Democrats going to clean up this state? Or how are Republicans going to win back the House? Or whatever it might be. Okay, but it's about who's going to win. And that's what I mean by scorekeeping. There's not a lot of actual substance in the news reporting. You're not going to see a lot of, you know, really breaking down, oh, well, Joe Biden's talking about this healthcare plan. You know, what does it mean and how is it going to affect middle class people and da 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 da. Now, there is that out there, but you have to dig deeper for it. If you're just going to watch TV or see little clickbait on the internet, it's going to be little snaps about who is winning. That's what horse race journalism is. Who's ahead? What does the competition look like? Not what do these two candidates really, really, really stand for and what are they asking for? There's just not a lot of actual policy being broken down and analyzed in horse race journalism. That's the point. Okay. So we're going to go through, I think, 4 problems that right now the media is presenting here in the United States, or at least problems with the media. I shouldn't say that they're presenting. It's problems that people have with the media, or things that we have to deal with here going forward, and what we hopefully, who is best equipped to deal with these things. But media problem number 1, for sure, is, and I put this poll up here about, you know, how fair or how much confidence do you have in mass media? Okay, you can see back in the 70s, people trusted what they saw on TV or what they read in newspapers, and basically since Watergate, basically is kind of the high point, you know, here, and then since Watergate, it goes down, and we're really at an all-time low of how much people trust the media out there. So, trust in the media is declining. Now, I say that's a problem. I don't mean it's a problem amongst Americans necessarily. That's a media problem to me, because I would say you should be skeptical. But the internet has just blown up how many sources are out there, and what you can or cannot trust has become more relevant than ever. And so, yeah, you should be skeptical. Okay? This is the biggest problem, I think, going forward, is just, can you trust what you read on the internet? You know, guess what? Not every meme is true. Okay? Might be funny, might kind of be what you believe, but it doesn't mean it's true. And we got to be careful about those kind of things. All right? So, media problem number 2. With social media driving the news, whether it's on Twitter or, like it says, Facebook, or even YouTube channels designed in news now, okay, they cater to your clicks is kind of the term. In other words, Facebook has a feed, right, that it gives me that I might be interested in. YouTube has my feed showing me options for videos that they think I'll be interested based on what I've watched before. But when that comes to news, think about it for a second. All right, if all I've ever watched is Fox News, then they're only going to give me those kind of right-wing or conservative sources, or vice versa on the left. If all we ever watch is MSNBC, then they're only going to give you liberal slanted stories. You may never get a neutral story, or you may never actually get the opposite perspective unless you purposely try to go seek it out or have news sources that are trying to be mostly neutral. So in an internet culture that's trying to get you invested in clicking and looking at it all the time, they're also catering to what you have looked at before and what you are going to think is interesting. And that means I may never see the other side of a story. And that might be a problem, because if I never get a fresh perspective, or if I never ever interact with things that test me or other people that test my viewpoints, that might not be good for society. Just saying, okay? That's why classes like this one that you're in right now have hopefully been somewhat beneficial for you. I know we have argued and stuff along the way. That's good, I would argue. It is, okay? So be willing to have an open dialogue with other people. All right, media problem 3. So this is a survey that I found online that I forget exactly what news outlet did this, but they basically had several different statements, okay? And here are 4 statements that they posed to people. And really what they asked is they said, okay, is this statement a fact or is this statement an opinion? And they broke down their results on who thought it was a fact and who thought it was opinion and how sure they were and things like that. So, okay, healthcare costs per person in the US are the highest in the developed world. Is this a fact or is this an opinion? That's a fact, okay? And they broke it down by ideology of who did well answering it correctly, okay? Republicans, Democrats, Independents, everybody did pretty well identifying that this was a fact, okay? But it kind of looked like Republicans were less likely to want to believe that that was a fact than Democrats, right? Because they maybe don't want to be into healthcare reform as much, okay? How about the second one? Immigrants who are in the U.S. illegally are a very big problem for the country today. Fact or opinion? It's opinion, okay? And again, Republicans did not want to admit that that was an opinion because they're more geared towards believing that's a fact, and that's what the news and stuff has been telling them, right? It's like, that's a fact. Well, no. Democrats are like, that's an opinion, okay? Government's always wasteful and inefficient. That's an opinion, okay? Did decent on this, but again, Republicans were more likely to want that to be a fact than the other two. You can see Obama was born in the U.S. That's a fact. He was born in Hawaii, okay? And he actually produced his birth certificate, okay? Republicans wanted that to be an opinion, okay, much more than other ones. All right, so a few more statements here. All right, so, whoops, got a little ahead of myself, but increasing the federal minimum wage to $15 an hour, okay, would really help the economy. That's an opinion for the most part, because there's data saying both sides of that story. Right here, we flipped it around. Democrats really wanted that to be a fact because they really want the minimum wage to be higher for the working class and lower class people, but Republicans are better saying, nope, that's an opinion. Immigrants who are in the U.S. illegally have some rights in the Constitution. That's a fact. You don't necessarily have to be a citizen to have some rights under the Constitution, especially the due process stuff in Amendments 4 through 8. Okay, Republicans really had a hard time thinking that that was not just an opinion. So, but so did everybody, to be fair. That's just something not a lot of Americans have really dealt with in their heads, obviously. Abortion should be, did I say legal or illegal? Legal. Okay, that's an opinion. I mean, either way, it was going to be an opinion. Okay, but Republicans really did a good job saying that's definitely an opinion because they really don't agree with that. So you get what I'm saying here, okay? In these last 3, Social Security, Medicare, Medicaid are the biggest portion of our budget. That's a fact, okay? Even though Democrats didn't really want to have to believe that that was a fact. Now, nobody did great on this one, but Democrats especially wanted that to be an opinion because they like those benefits for people and kind of want to expand them, but it is expensive. Democracy is the greatest form of government. It's an opinion. I mean, you know, okay, big picture, it's an opinion. Okay, everybody struggled with that one a little bit, and then ISIS lost a big portion of its territory in 2017. That's a fact, okay, which Republicans were more likely to know was a fact than Democrats. So, okay, so what do these kind of trends tell us here? Okay, and here's the study broken down, okay, kind of piece by piece, or what the difference is between Democrats and Republicans. You can see the biggest one was about the immigrant thing, and it's just kind of interesting to see the statistics. But here's what this whole thing told us. One, the more politically aware of things you are, the better you'll do on being able to decipher fact from opinion. The more informed you are, the better you're going to do. Makes pretty good sense, I would argue. Okay. Two, the more savvy you are with the internet, okay, in fact, like, I guess I'd say if you know that what you're looking at might be sketchy as far as a news source goes, or if you do look at those memes and you're like, that's funny, might not be true, but it's funny, that's fine, okay? But if you know that what you're looking for might be biased, or which way it is biased before you actually start reading or looking at it or analyzing it, the better off you're going to do. Hopefully you as a young generation is going to do well with this. Okay, and still, the traditional big national news sources are the best. The ones that had their trust in those and that read those and watched those much more often did better at deciphering these things. So I would argue they are still the best, as in the New York Times, ABC News, CBS News, NPR, the BBC, CNN. I know people can be torn on those. Statistically, they are still the best. I'll put a chart up here in a second. Okay, and then really both sides, though, both Democrats, Republicans, and even independents, they were lured in, by what was enticing to be heard of as a fact. It's like, well, actually, that was an opinion. Okay, so both sides are influenced. It's not like one is more or less than the other one, necessarily. So, okay, but these four things are the results. Okay, but the more aware you are, the better. The more savvy with the internet you are, the better. And the more you look at traditionally good sources, the better. Okay, like it says, this is pretty good. This is more or less what I had posted in my room. Okay, just what is the news source, and the farther to the right or the farther to the left it was, or the further down it is, the worse it is as far as giving factual information or not being super biased one way or the other. So this green box is really where you want to go for the best news sources that are going to do real legitimate reporting. Okay, so kind of there's your traditional ABC, NBC, CBS, right? Your NPR, your Politico, your New York Times, your Wall Street Journal, Christian Science Monitor, PBS. This is the good stuff. This stuff in yellow, not bad. A little more slanted, a little more biased, especially as you go down. So like here's MSNBC, right? Okay, and CNN's in here, and Fox News is somewhere in there too. I'm not sure I see it on there right now. Okay, down here, and then you get into this orange and red. This is pretty much just like it says, this is just nonsense. Okay, that is damaging to actually having a real conversation with people, I would argue. This is conspiracy theories and just outright lies and slanting and not good stuff. It's just propaganda. Okay, so be careful what you're looking at is my big thing. All right. So last media problem, right, is who is the news actually owned by? What we've seen happen is pretty much these 5 companies have just bought up everything. And actually, in the last year, maybe a year and a half ago, Disney bought 21st Century Fox. So pretty much all these, not quite all of them, but almost all of these just got wedged in with this. I think that Fox and Fox News and some movie company are staying independent, but everything else, FX, Nat Geo, all that stuff got funneled into Disney, because if you have Disney Plus, you see the Nat Geo option on there. Okay, so here's the problem with all these companies owning everything. Okay, when everything is consolidated into these big old companies, okay, you have information being controlled and sent out by just a few people or just a few companies. And so how things are getting reported and what is getting reported does not differ very much. Okay. Now there may be opposite viewpoints, but how they're getting represented, going back to like the Anchorman stuff, it's all kind of the same. Okay, so we don't have like a lot of just alternative news sources out there that are giving it to you in a different way or in a less biased way or whatever, and that's concerning going forward. All right, last couple slides. So the role in agenda setting, okay, media obviously is there to raise awareness and maybe the things they think that you're going to be like excited about, but it is there to provide information about those things. Okay. And they're also going to try to persuade voters for sure, especially in 2020 as we have a big old election coming up. They're going to draw attention to the hot button issues that Biden and Trump are going to be talking about. Okay. And they're going to point out the consequences of those problems. Okay. Not necessarily in a big time in-depth way, but just in a matter of fact, scary type of way, fear-mongering, okay? And they're going to determine what's important by stressing certain subjects and issues, okay? Obviously, a lot of things are going to get, coronavirus is obviously headlining everything right now. What it's going to be like in 6 months, who knows what the big topics are going to be, okay? But they're going to definitely stress certain things, and other things are going to get pushed to the side, okay? And then they're going to try to get the government's attention through this, right? I mean, listen, government workers, President Trump, he watches the news. He must, because he's always talking about what's getting reported or how unfair this is or that is or whatever. Same thing with congressmen on both sides of the story too. Okay, they pay attention, and so the media is there to get the government's attention too. What is getting reported becomes a bigger deal in the minds of the lawmakers and policymakers as well. So that is it. I know it's a lot for just 11 questions, but get those done by Thursday and be looking for the next notes video coming up after that.